All right, today we are diving deep into something that's all around us, something we're a part of every single second of every day, our environment. And as we'll see, it's an incredibly delicate system.
I mean, have you ever really stopped to think about it? You look at a forest or a lake and it seems so complex, maybe even chaotic. But it's not. It all follows a fundamental set of rules, and once you get them, it all just clicks into place. So let's start with the absolute basics. What even is the environment? Well, it's everything. It's not just the plants and animals. It's also the non-living stuff, the water, the sunlight, the soil, the air. It's the whole package. And this right here, this is the most important idea to get your head around. Everything is connected. Nothing, and I mean nothing, exists on its own. A tiny change in one spot can create huge ripples across the entire system. That idea of connection brings us perfectly to our first section. We're going to look at the basic building block of our environment, something called the ecosystem. So an ecosystem, think of it like a bustling, self-contained neighborhood. It could be a massive forest or a tiny little pond. But inside that space, all the residents, from the smallest bacteria to the biggest bear, are constantly interacting with each other and their surroundings, creating this incredible, self-regulating community. Okay, so if an ecosystem is a neighborhood, who lives there? Well, every ecosystem has a specific cast of characters, and each one has a vital job to do. Let's meet the team. First up, you've got the producers. These guys are the absolute rock stars of the ecosystem. They're the ones who can take pure energy from the sun and turn it into food. They are the foundation. Literally everything else depends on them. Next, of course, you have the consumers. This is pretty much everybody else who has to eat to get their energy. You've got your herbivores eating plants, carnivores eating other animals, and omnivores eating a bit of both. They're all consumers. And finally, we have the most underrated, unsung heroes of the whole operation, the decomposers. This is your cleanup crew, the bacteria and fungi. They take all the dead stuff, break it down, and return those precious nutrients back to the soil for the producers to use all over again. We really don't think about them much, do we? But have you ever wondered, what if one day they all just vanished? What would actually happen? Well, it would be an absolute disaster. For starters, dead things would just pile up everywhere. All those vital nutrients would be locked inside them, totally useless. The soil would become barren, and pretty soon, the entire system, the whole cycle of life would just stop. That whole cycle really shows you how critical the flow of energy and nutrients is. So for our next section, let's look at the actual rules that govern that flow. It's fascinating stuff. The easiest way to picture this is with the classic food chain. It's a super simple, straight line of who eats who. The grass makes energy from the sun. The deer gets that energy by eating the grass. The lion gets its energy by eating the deer. See? Simple and direct. Each of these steps on the chain has a name. It's called a trophic level. It's just a way of organizing the pyramid. So in our little example, the grass is level 1, the deer is level 2, and the lion is level 3. It's just a framework for who's eating whom. Okay. Now, here is the part that kind of blows my mind. As energy moves up from one level to the next, only about 10% of it actually gets transferred. That's it, just 10%. So you have to be asking, where does the other 90% vanish to? Well, a ton of it is used by the organism just to live, to move around, to breathe, to stay warm. A lot is just lost as heat. Plus, not every part of an animal or plant gets eaten. The big takeaway is that there's a huge energy drop-off at every single step. So you can see it's this incredibly delicate energy balance that keeps everything stable. But what happens when we humans start throwing a wrench in the works? Let's take a look at how our actions can put this whole system under a lot of stress. This brings us to a really dangerous problem called biological magnification. This is what happens when nasty chemicals that don't break down, like certain pesticides, get into the food chain. They don't disappear, they just accumulate. And you can see exactly how it works here. You start with just a little bit of pesticide in the water. Tiny organisms absorb it. Then small fish come along and eat lots of those tiny organisms, and the toxin gets more concentrated. Then bigger fish eat lots of the small fish, concentrating it even more. By the time you get to the top of the food chain, to predators like us, that chemical concentration can be incredibly high and dangerous. And another huge stress on the system? damage to our ozone layer. You know, that layer high up in the atmosphere is basically Earth's built-in sunscreen protecting all of us from the sun's most harmful UV rays. But then we have these chemicals called CFCs. They used to be in everything from refrigerators to hairspray, and they've been literally eating holes in that protective shield. Okay, so it is crystal clear that our big picture actions have a massive effect. For our final section, let's zoom all the way in and look at our own personal daily impact on the environment. Every single day, we create trash, and it pretty much falls into two buckets. You've got your biodegradable stuff like food scraps or paper that decomposers can break down naturally, and then you've got the non-biodegradable stuff like plastic and glass, which can stick around for, well, hundreds, even thousands of years. And you've probably heard of the best way to handle this, the 3 R's. We can recycle materials into new products, we can reuse items instead of throwing them away, but honestly, the most powerful, most effective one by far is that first one, reduce. Just using and buying less stuff in the first place has the biggest impact of all. And that's really what this all boils down to. Our environment isn't a collection of random things. It's a deeply woven system, a dance of producers, consumers, and decomposers, all governed by the flow of energy. Understanding our place in that chain isn't just some science lesson. It's about recognizing that we are part of this system, not separate from it. And living sustainably, respecting that delicate balance, well, that's the key to its survival, and ultimately, our own.